You know, one of the aspects of this job that doesn't really get talked about is the necessity of projecting success, even if only by not owning up to when things get rough, financially speaking. I feel like I should say up front, I'm doing fine right now. Like, by the metrics of YouTube, but that's kind of what I'm going to be here to talk about. Now, this is not my first time kind of discussing the financial realities of trying to make YouTube your job. I did a video about a year ago, actually, on that topic, interviewing a number of interviewers and also speaking about my own situation. But something happened while I was on vacation that made me want to revisit the topic because I really don't think that people understand how hard financially this is to do. And I think that's partially our own fault. So I'm going to talk a little bit. This is not strictly about, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the YouTuber Ian Danskin, also known as Innuendo Studios. I like Innuendo Studios a fair bit. I've referenced it in a number of videos at various points for various reasons. I've enjoyed actually probably most his video game related content, although he is best known for the alt-right playbook and its examination of the rhetorical tactics of the far right, which has increasingly become the mainstream right, regrettably. But he does really good work. He doesn't have a particularly speedy or even really a regular upload schedule. Things are up when they're ready. He tends to get good views. Well, certainly by my metrics, he tends to get good viewer numbers. I never really checked his Patreon or anything like that, but he put out a video basically saying that he was in a financial hole that had been getting deeper over time. This wasn't a case of a singular event. There wasn't like a singular medical event or, car got totaled or something like that that sent him down the spiral. He simply, like most people, whether they are self-employed and doing something like YouTube or not, the reality of being basically under 50 at this point is that you probably have more debt than you are really comfortable with. And you may not have a plan on how to get it all paid off. Or if you do, you only have a plan to get the debt paid off, not for what you're going to do afterwards. It's a pretty common financial reality for millennials, and I have to imagine it's even worse for Gen Z. But he came forward and said that he had been basically running the channel at a loss for a while, meaning that the financial situation that he was in, the hole that he was in, kept getting deeper. And he couldn't see a way out of it other than to change how he was making a living, i.e., at the very least, severely cut back doing YouTube and find, more stable, standard work, or possibly just stop altogether. Now, what happened next was heartening, but kind of it emphasized some of the thoughts that I already had just based on his initial video that he put out. Because what happened was that before he had even fully announced it properly that it existed, his GoFundMe campaign exceeded his acknowledged debt of $87,000. Now, to be clear, just so you understand how GoFundMe works, for him to actually pay off $87,000 worth of debt through GoFundMe, he was going to have to raise more than that because GoFundMe takes a percentage. But as it climbed up over $150,000 worth of raising and support, he actually turned off contributions so that people couldn't keep giving him money. At the time I'm recording that, he did that about a day ago, which I think speaks well of him and is something that I relate to. And again, I don't want this to really be about Ian. However, I do think that what happened to him is exemplary of something that a lot of YouTubers are really bad at acknowledging, which is that doing this as a full-time job is almost impossible. Now, don't get me wrong. There are success stories out there. They come in a couple of flavors. There are, of course, the corporately backed YouTube channels who basically don't really have to worry whether or not they are successful. They are a marketing arm, most likely, of somebody else. There are the not necessarily owned by a larger conglomeration, but the ones that have set themselves up to be able to crank out a lot of stuff on a quick pace. Those will be your content mills, which generally have it very carefully set up to not put more time or money into things than they are going to get out of it in views. And then they just flood their pages with as much content as they possibly can. They don't need everything to hit. For the kind of YouTuber that I watch and that I maybe could even be included in conversation in, but more your video essay types, there is a very small number, I mean a very small number, who have such strong support that they can take as long as they need. Honestly, H-Bomber Guy is kind of the big one to think of in terms of that. Him, ContraPoints, people who come out with a video a year, maybe, but they have such strong, consistent support through things like Patreon that they are able to work at that pace. But the thing is, unless you are part of that rarefied strata of YouTuber, which is, I'd be surprised if it's double digits, really, then you need to be maintaining a regular output. And you need, well, a lot of stuff. It's very easy to make fun of YouTubers for the sponsor spots where they have to pretend that Raid Shadow Legends is a great video game, actually. Or they have to act like you've never heard of a VPN before as they tell you about that. And that's some of the more scrupulous ones who actually get deals from legit organizations, or semi-legit, I guess, in the case of Raid Shadow Legends. I feel okay slagging them off. They were never going to sponsor me anyway. But, things like that, limited merch runs, all these sorts of things. It's easy to mock. It's easy to mock the idea of a YouTuber going, hey, it's your boy, and we're going to talk about this crazy thing, but first, be sure to check out my merch store. Like, it's very mockable. And there are certainly some people who have done that to a level of success that far exceeds their needs, but most of them haven't. And the thing is, if you don't want to come across like that, and you want to be taken more seriously, which I think most video essayist style YouTubers do, doing that is hard. And admitting that you're struggling because you don't do that is harder. The reason in this title I said your favorite YouTubers and not just YouTubers in general is that it is the kind of YouTuber and YouTube channel that I think my audience tends to like that is the hardest. Because the returns that we get for the videos that we put out are not what you think. Not even on the successes. And I'm going to do something that I didn't even do last time I talked finances. I'm going to give you some hard numbers. Here are the 2 most successful videos I have ever made in terms of revenue. They also happen to be my 2 most successful videos in terms of views. Now, here's what you really need to realize. That was an extreme rarity for me. I have new videos out every week. They do not make that. They don't even come close to making that. That needs to be understood that those made that much money, well, for 2 different reasons. One, in the case of the James Somerton video, because it hit that number very quickly. And the other, the Neil Gaiman video, took longer to break 200,000, but it was long, so it had a really good watch time length. It is not a hard metric. If you get so many views, you get so much money. It's not even a hard metric of you get so much watch time, you get so much money. because there are videos that I have simply because of the nature of the topics that I was talking about that, despite the view number, made way less money than it makes sense for them to have made if you look at other things that had comparable viewing numbers. And understand, I've got a lot of advantages. I have significantly less debt than is typical for somebody of my age. And that's not a brag, that's privilege. And I'm well aware of that. I talked in more detail about why that's the case for me in last year's video, so I won't reiterate too much of that here. But you need to understand, and I think we as YouTubers need to be better about communicating how hard this is to do. Because from most viewers' perspective, watching YouTube is free. You watch the ads and you assume people get paid fairly. And whether or not it's fair for the amount of views we get, that's a whole other conversation that could be had. It's almost as if YouTubers should consider unionizing for better bargaining positions and more universal standards. But like that's ever going to freaking happen. Oh, and since I brought up ads a minute ago, can we talk about how having integrity costs you a lot? YouTubers have the ability to set manual mid-roll ads. This is something that I do to ensure that where an ad is placed doesn't badly interrupt the flow of the video, and also it's not overloaded with them. My main channel videos usually do 2 mid-roll ads, occasionally 3. Over in the break room of Geeks, where videos are shorter, I usually only have 1. But this is what mid-roll ad placement looks like when I leave it to YouTube's automated system. This is how often they want ads to be played. And I don't let them do this, but it would mean more money for me if I did. The idea of interrupting every couple of minutes for an ad potentially just makes me feel gross. And I can't even quantify for you what it costs me to not run more ads. But I look at what happened to Ian, and I don't mean this as a criticism directed to him, but I cannot help but think how much less money would have had to have been raised if he had said earlier, I'm in a hole and it's getting deeper, instead of waiting until, oh, I can't get out of this hole and I need to stop. I think it's very clear from the response that happened to his GoFundMe that people would have stepped up. People did step up. And I think the kind of YouTuber that he is, and that I am to a lesser degree, and I don't mean that I think my output is less, it's just I'm not really trying to do what he's trying to do most of the time. But the thing about that type of YouTuber, video essayists, people who are putting a lot of effort in, people who are by and large one-person operations, the vast majority of YouTubers in this kind of space making this kind of content, it is a one-person operation. They write it themselves. They are the talent. They have to edit it. If there are any bespoke, unique art assets, they either have to make it themselves or they got to commission somebody to do it. And anything that they don't do themselves, they are probably paying somebody to do. I pay my thumbnail guy, Joel. He's amazing because I suck at thumbnails. And he's great. But everything else, I do myself. I do my own editing. If I script in full, I have to write it myself. I can't afford to outsource that. And a lot of other people doing the same thing also can't afford to outsource it. And even those who do, some of them don't want to because editing is part of the excitement of the process for them. But that results in a larger commitment of time. And I think a lot of us are really good at undervaluing our own time. And as a result, we don't really let you know how hard this is. One of the folks who I talked to last year was Scott Nicewander, who runs NerdSync, which is significantly more successful than my channel. But one of the things he noted is he's really only able to keep doing that because of the fact that his wife has a full-time job. And I am pretty upfront at this point about the fact that I'm only able to do this because I came into this situation with significantly less debt than is common for my age demographic. And if I'd had more, I don't know what kind of situation I'd be in. I don't know what kind of condition I'd be in. And I also understand like the reluctance to talk about this, the reluctance to even push the stuff that would help us. Like, yeah, sure, I plug my Patreon at the end of every video. How many people stick around to the very end of the video? I'll tell you, the percentage is low. So by putting it at the end, out of fear of being obtrusive, of asking too much of my audience, of taking advantage of my viewers, I stick it at the back where almost nobody sees it. Hey, let's do the plug now, Patreon. It is how I'm able to do this as my living. Not on its own. Even that, while I have a pretty successful Patreon, especially for the size of a channel that I have, that wouldn't cover my bills alone either. I need this and that and the other stuff that I do as well. If I didn't have all of it, I'd be in trouble. And we're not upfront about that. And I think it's because people have a sense of shame about financials, especially if they're struggling. Our society, this capitalistic society where money equals success, money equals validation, we feel like failures when we need financial help. And that can make it easier to get into bigger holes than are necessary. And like, I understand that fear. Like I said, it's not just a matter of the cliche of the YouTuber who opens all overly happy, plugs the Patreon immediately, and then pimps their merch, and then 10 minutes into the video stops and does an ad read for a mobile game. It's not just that. There are legitimate grifter tactics that work but make you feel gross. And that can include being upfront or exaggerating how much help you need or the kind of financial hole you're in. I'd say my go-to example of that is Alex Jones, who for a long time rode the idea of he was going to go broke in a matter of months very successfully as a fundraising tactic. That was just always part of his pitch.
We got to fund this operation. We got the very best nutraceuticals out there. I don't know if I can run this for another week or so. We want to run it through the end of the month, but that's like 11 days.
If you don't help me, if you don't buy my marked up supplements and merch and all this other stuff that if you were to get equivalents anywhere else would cost you significantly less, but if you don't buy it from me, I will go under. That was his whole thing. And it was a grift. He rode that to great success for a long time. And we don't want to be that. But there has to be a middle ground. There has to be a space between says you're about to go under even when you're not, and then just pockets the money and never says you need help until you are at the point where you have to actually stop doing the thing that people love. I would hope, it's a vain hope, but I would hope that maybe a conversation that can happen around Ian and leaping off from Ian. It doesn't really need to be about him. Again, dude's got his own stuff to deal with. He's got a financial situation to fully sort. And as someone who, never to that dollar amount, but as someone who has been shocked at the support that I've gotten when I had a Kickstarter hit its goal within the first 24 hours and I cried live on a live stream because of it, like I understand how overwhelming that sense of support is. And I understand that you can feel scummy when you think, am I taking advantage of it? Am I using my audience like a piggy bank? Well, first of all, as long as you are upfront and honest and are not saying anything that is untrue about your financial situation, and as long as they understand what they are getting in exchange for the assistance, which is to continue to get what they've always gotten from you, as long as you're not overselling, as long as you're not lying about the situation, why you need it or how much, you're not taking advantage of them. They want to help. But we have instilled so much in this country. Financial help is a mark of failure. It's a mark of weakness. To ask for it is pathetic. It's not. We need help. All of us, at some point, we will need help. Probably financial. It's not a moral failing to ask for help. But it's so important to project the idea that we know what we're doing. We're successful at this. Fake it till you make it. God damn it. And never stop, even as you're drowning. That's not good for us, and it doesn't help our audience. Now, of course, you can overshare. You can, even if you're being completely honest and not exaggerating anything, you could start to make, even just your social media presence too much about, this stuff. And yeah, you could start putting off your audience. I'm not saying that's not a risk, but to my fellow YouTubers, you have an audience that loves what you do and would be sad if it went away. Or at least if you've made this your full-time job, you should have that. And if you do, they are willing to help. And it is possible to allow them and to ask for that help without flat out taking advantage of them. It is a power you need to be careful not to abuse, but it's not a failing to ask for help. And I really, really hope that there could be a shift in the mentality. I guess we'll start with me. I did say at the front, I'm fine, and I am. I'm not in jeopardy, but I am ultimately living off the self-employment equivalent of paycheck to paycheck. I get paid by YouTube monthly, and I get paid by Patreon monthly. Now that gets supplemented with much smaller weekly infusions from my OnlyFans and a few other sites like that. But I don't really have much ability to build up a savings. I'm okay. I even managed to get one of my credit cards paid off earlier this year, the one with the lowest debt on it. But still, it's my intention to keep it that way. But the reality is, if I have a medical event, if my car breaks down, or if something happens with my kid, like, that credit card's going to get maxed out again immediately. And I won't be able to pay it down again for years. The reality is that I am fine so long as nothing goes wrong. And that's not really stability. I don't have to worry where my next meal is coming from, but I do have to hope nothing goes wrong. And I say that from I know full well, much more privileged and stable position than a lot of YouTubers I know, including ones significantly larger than me. Doing this job is wonderful and fulfilling, especially if you can approach it in a way that doesn't make it feel like you had to sell out your morals and your principles. And if you can find a way to take things that you love to talk about and make a living off that, this is a dream job. But it's also almost impossible to make a living doing. And a lot of people that you probably think are doing well aren't. At best, they're probably okay, but that's about it. Or they might be in trouble and afraid to say it. I'm not, thankfully, but I also had the experience earlier this month where, long story made short, my Patreon payment got held up. I've been paid on the same day of the month for the years that I have been on Patreon. And it was delayed because apparently, like, one of my supporters had some suspicious financial activity on their account. And so in the process of checking out that person's transactions, they were holding up the payouts for the various creators on there that this person supported. So it's all been sorted. But the thing is, because I've always been paid on the same day of the month all the time, I have a bunch of stuff set to auto pay a few business days after, because I have ADHD, and if I can safely have stuff happen automatically, that's good for me. But by the time I realized this was genuinely delayed and wasn't going to arrive in time, those transactions were already started. Like, they hadn't been taken from my account yet, but they were too far along for me to cancel and stop them and or delay them. And I put word out here on the channel that I literally just needed a couple $100 to be sure that I wasn't overdrawn. that was all that, because like once the amount got released from Patreon, it was going to be fine, but I was about to get overdrawn. And I put that up. I took a shower. I got out of the shower and had raised 150% of what I needed. And I did the same thing Ian did. I got rid of the request. I took it down because I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage. But I was in a situation where, was I in desperate, dire struggle? No, but I was about to be overdrawn on my account, which is a spiral that gets real bad real fast. And you guys saved me. I asked for help and you were there. And I think a lot of YouTubers are going to find that if they could get more comfortable being honest about when something has gone sideways, I think they will find that their audiences want to help. Not all of them. And some people will probably throw accusations of, taking advantage of your audience or whatever. But like, honestly, if you are making videos in this kind of space, you should be used to having a bunch of really BS accusations being thrown at you. And that's something we all need to get better at ignoring anyways. Your audience loves you and wants to help. But if you don't tell them you need it, then they can't. So my hope through a video like this, which I have no idea how many people this will reach, but I hope that you understand better the precarious situation that your favorite YouTubers are probably in. And I hope that other YouTubers in this space can start to work on breaking down that stigma, that guilt, and that shame that comes from asking for help. It's okay. You might just be surprised at what happens when you're willing to say, I need help. Thank you very much for listening. Whatever thoughts you might have on any of this, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. I already did the Patreon plug, so we can skip that. But what I really want you to remember, YouTuber or viewer, you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council, and I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Quite Bearish, Zubin Litfula, Mara G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Andre, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. And also Toka Blue Hoovian, Auntie 808, and Tracy Scrabbit. If you'd like to hear me try and pronounce your name correctly while these guys chitter in my ears, check out the reward tiers on the Patreon. Yes, I hear you.